Obviously, for the 219th time, they were wrong. They're always wrong, and that's the problem.
A sober look at this is the elites and the powerful have learned nothing from 2016 and Donald Trump's ascension to power. They've literally learned nothing. So it was disenfranchised working class people who were silenced, thrown on the trash heap, disrespected, belittled, strawmanned, blamed for things that were not their fault. And Donald Trump emerged from countless elitist, statist mistakes by way of governance. And literally zero self-correction has taken place in that time. And obviously, and this is no epiphany to me, but to many Americans, I suppose it is something that is, the scales are falling from their eyes. There is no difference in these political parties. You have an establishment, Washington, D.C., corrupt oligarchy. That is what has been the case for a long time now. Perhaps there's a few people that are awakening to that. Look, when you remove all civil ways of problem solving from a group of people, you can feign concern about violence, but needless violence is what occurs as a result of that. So as irony would have it, it's actually the people who are mindfully doing the things you see right now that are provoking violence. Those are the people actually provoking violence. Donald Trump saying that you should take a political march to Congress is not provoking violence. The other thing I can't help but get over is, or rather, the other thing that's just really rubbing me the wrong way is for the lion's share of this year, the American people have been disrespected, humiliated, financially ruined, flagrant corruption flown in their face like a flag. They have been disrespected and made to feel unsafe in almost every way. Not every way, but almost every way. I mean, we are Americans, and certainly by way of, the American standard of life, the American people have been just profoundly disrespected on the regular. And yet, the slightest real or staged presentation that Congress has made to feel unsafe, it is turn the volume all the way up to 11 hyperbole everywhere. So you'll notice almost all of these statist information conduits are all beet red, ablaze with concern. But zero craps were given as Americans were driven from their homes, scraping money aside to pay for basic things. Restaurants, businesses, dreams shut down, boarded, locked up. Through no fault of their own, by the way. No fault of their own at all. Zero craps given. In fact, it was your fault, after all. Push back on any kind of narrative or anything that didn't make sense. It was your fault. You were the scumbag. And of course, we haven't even grazed the just flagrant transparency about political violence. Essentially what it all boils down to, and there's a lot of people out there pontificating, but what it boils down to, there's two tiers of justice in this country, and it's got much more to do with your ideology than it does your race, although your race certainly has an impact on that. And it has everything to do with whether or not you are nodding, bowing, and swallowing the jagged pill of statist narrative. If you are, you can virtually do anything. You can commit transparent graft and corruption, nepotism, and you'll find your way into the White House, apparently. If you do not swallow that narrative, you will be Orwellian scrubbed, defamed, besmirched, lied about, depersoned. And social media platforms, by the way, in their censorship, this is the on-ramp to the highway of this kind of thing. So it's banks, it's corporations will follow. They will ideologically hunt, and that's just known. Look, the left doesn't have a bag of different tricks. They just have control, silence, coerce. That's it. There isn't another verse to the song. It's just like a 4 on the floor dubstep beat. It's always the same thing. They don't know another game. So that is what they will do. And these companies, these war machine elites, social media, Silicon Valley, millionaires and billionaires, they will all consolidate power, build moats to power. That's what this is all about, by the way. It's all about that. Elections will dissolve in legitimacy more than they even have now. And that's all as an ends to a means of global elite power structure, which is not new. It's been the case for a long, long time. It's bleak. There's really no icing on the turd cake. There really just isn't. It's a very, very dark day. And it really has nothing to do with being a Republican or a conservative or a Democrat or a libertarian. It has nothing to do with that. It's just liberty. It's a reminder to people. I mean, there's an entire generation that doesn't even know this, I suppose. But your rights, your ability to speak, your right to own property, your right to pursue dreams, that's not given to you by a government. That's God-derived. That's God-given rights. Those are natural rights. That's almost like shocking novel words now. Certainly, those kind of words get you scrubbed from our internet communication platforms, but true nonetheless. It doesn't matter what the populace thinks. That's just true. The government doesn't bestow these things upon you. You certainly would not know that at a quick glance of 2020, but it's just a fact. The government does not grant you human rights, the ability to think and speak and endeavor and dream. They just simply do not. Don't let your friends muddy the waters with partisan politics or tribalism or whatever the case may be. Whatever hyperbolic narrative being pushed, thoroughly refuted media outlets. I mean, let me just remind you all. Literally every narrative that they've pushed this entire year, at least, is either completely refuted at this point or riddled with holes, at best half truth. I'm talking to every one. If you were to look back at these same outfits that are now telling you there's insurrection and all this different stuff, every single one of them were wrong, refuted. I can think about 5 or 6 that just have to do with Donald Trump. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump in my mind. But I can think of 5 or 6 that are just completely on the ash heap of media disinformation and lies. So to say that you're not getting the skinny on this is an understatement. And that shouldn't be controversial because it's just established at this point. But it is, because everybody's tribal and they see through a lens. In many cases, that lens is Trump. For all the talk of Trump loyalists, the people obsessed with Trump are on the left. And the powerful and the elites will learn very, very soon that this had nothing to do with a blind loyalty to Trump, but instead a loyalty to liberty and freedom and a recognition of the enemies of both. As far as what to do, first of all, cut off all cable television. I mean, no exceptions. I know you might like some programs or whatever your preferences are. Cut that all off. All of that. All the alphabet soup should be gone. I can't reiterate that enough. They are today, they were yesterday, and they will be tomorrow, the greatest enemy to the republic and the experiment that is the United States of America. The media is purely evil. I know it's weird because a lot of these new social media platforms are clunky. They don't have a lot of people on them, but you need to bail. You need to get off of these statist Orwellian platforms for lots of reasons. Number one, you're profiting Silicon Valley, and they're nothing more than stooges for an oligarchy, begging for crumbs on a globalist table. That's what they're doing. You need to bounce immediately, get your family, get a small circle of friends, and rebuild your social media enjoyment somewhere else. Just get off of those. Preferably platforms that have really, really built out some independent infrastructure. I saw a very moving video on Gab and the owner of Gab. I would suggest that being one of them, but there's many. Just bail. And if you see any of them in any way infringe on free speech, bail on them too. Just continue to bail. I know it's inconvenient. I know it sucks. It's the reality. You need to do that. You need to have very thoughtful conversations with the people around you. And it's hard work about how none of this is about the binary tribal bread and circuses that are being presented to them, but instead it's ideological. To stand up against this totalitarianism and authoritarianism right now is actually moral. It's moral, regardless of anything anybody's saying. It's moral. It's wrong. The people that will be wounded by this are the weak, the powerless, and the voiceless. I think you have to start from scratch. I think you have to have a lot of human capital in the game. You got to ideologically reestablish why leftism, collectivism, totalitarianism, statism is wrong and will yield terrible fruit. I find it to be astonishing that the emerging asterisk presidency is literally using words like the Great Reset. They're using those words. Those are Pol Pot's literal words. There's 2 million human beings buried in the Cambodian killing fields as the fruit from those ideas, but they're just like dandelions. They just pop all over the green pastures of human existence, and one must get out whatever your weed killer of choice is and spray, because ideas have consequences, and those consequences are bearing down on us now, and you will continue to see those. It's bleak. I won't lie to you, but that's the challenge before you. Thank you for listening.
Share this podcast with a friend.